Carson, Leno, Fallon. Now, it's Wine Talks with Paul K.
Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul K. And we are at an away game up in the Montalcino area of Brunello, about to have a conversation with Emilia Nardi. Introductions in just a moment. Wine Talks, of course, available on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, for podcasting. But have a listen to Caterina Anderson. I just released her episode. She's a PhD in history. She lives in Italy. She lives in Florence. She is an influencer here in Italy, and she helps wineries get their footing. Very fancy and very interesting conversation with Caterina, because history is so much a part of our industry, and that's why we're here today, to have a conversation with Emilia Nardi. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to everybody.
Thank you. So, wait a minute. What do you call yourself? President, CEO?
Me, I have been the president of this company for more than 40 years. I have started to work here when I was 19 years old. My father was quite old because I am the baby of 8 children, and I was born when my father was 58. So when I was 19 years old, time has come to take care of this winery.
What happened to the other 7 children? Did they not
they take care of the other business of the family. So it's we have a quite long history linked to farming, and not only in winemaking or cereal or sugar beet, but we have been producing agricultural implements since 1895.
So I read about that, and I was formulating questions to talk about. But there's also this story about your grandfather moving to the U.S., immigrating to the U.S.
No, moved to South America, to Argentina, leaving my grandmother, Annunziata Nardi, with the 3 children in Italy. And that was in 1892, and he came back 1895.
Oh, he didn't stay too long.
No, to be an immigrant was probably not in his mind, and he was suffering of a melancholy. But he was a very smart man, and so when he came back to Italy, he brought with him a design of a plough. Reversible plough, as we call. And so he have started to produce them in a very, very small shop in the countryside. I owned the house of my grandparents, and by the help of my grandmother, she was the rich of the family. That means that had some fields, so she cultivates cereals, tobacco.
Really?
And some vines, and they tried to raise money to help his husband.
That's
and
fascinating.
That happens that slowly, this business grown up. It's mostly because in Italy we had all the politicians had invested in the farming development. In Italy in that time was starving. And
this is 1950. This is post-war.
That was
before
1890. And we have slowly this business grown up by the help of, as I told you, about Giolitti, and after we have had the fascism that has invested a lot in farming and a lot in the colony. And that's why the Nardi plough, as you can find them all over in the East Africa, Middle East, and close East. For us to talk with the Arabian people, or we have exported a lot, for example, in Iraq in the 1940s.
Wow.
And we are very well known in Africa. And that business made us aware of the importance of the soil in any kind of cultivation. And I have tried to brought this the characteristic of to be innovator even in the winemaking.
So we have a farming implement company. We're making plows.
And in 1950, my father was so tired because the business has grown so much after the Second World War So the doctor told him to find a place where to relax, where to be
Really?
himself, where to take out the tie and to absolutely to relax. No, anyone needs a moment where to be himself.
Can we toast this doctor?
Yes.
Because he brought you to the Montalcino, basically.
Yes, I brought this. Came here. The place is wonderful, as you can see from the windows. The landscape is beautiful now, but has always been extremely beautiful. And so he started to test here the machinery that he produced. And that was in the 1950 and 1952. He tried to sell these machineries to the neighborhoods, to the landowners around us. That was our market. And during a dinner, the Biondisanti family and Barbie Colombini, they have invited, my mother and my father invited them for a dinner trying to sell machineries, and they proposed him to start to produce Brunello di Montalcino. In the 1952, there were only 5 producers. We are the number 6 to have started the Brunello di Montalcino production.
So I want to ask that question. Since that was very early on,
Yeah.
it's Sangiovese Grosso,
Yeah.
this particular hybrid, or not a hybrid, but the species of Sangiovese. But where did Brunello come from? What's the name Brunello mean?
You have always to go back in the history.
Really?
Yes. Imagine that till the 1995, in the rules how to produce Brunello, the name of the grape was Brunello, not Sangiovese. All in that time, the agriculture minister has asked us to refer to the Sangiovese Grosso. And absolutely, we are part of this large family. And we have to go back. And imagine in the 80s or in 1800s, 18th century, sorry, my English, 18th century, or in the 17th centuries, every place had developed its own kind of a Sangiovese Grosso. And this grape is extremely sensitive to the soil and to the climate where it grows and genetically changes itself. Imagine that after 20 years, a Sangiovese Grosso vine has been planted. After 20 years, it changed, adapt genetically to the place where it grows. Yes, this is something that scientifically we have discovered. So when my father came here, the grape was Brunello produced with the Brunello grapes. So that means Sangiovese Grosso adapted to the Montalcino area.
Was he attracted by the farmland? Because he's selling implements. That's different than being a farmer. The doctor tells him you need to go do something else.
My father was a great hunter.
And he liked to hunt.
Yes, it is, as you have seen, the place is full of animals and was more full of animals, wild boar, deers, and birds of different pheasants, and wild rabbit. So this was absolutely the beauty, the great place for him, where to be, where to relax.
Last night we were driving to our villa in Cortona.
Yeah.
It was dark. Giant boar walks across. Did I tell you guys that? Giant boar walks across in front of us.
I know.
Crazy.
It's crazy, yes.
So he comes up, does he build this chateau or this villa at that time in this location, or are we still sort of trying to figure out what we're going to do with the vines? We haven't really made any wine. And what drew him to wine? You were growing wheat, or you were growing grain?
No, we had grown wheat and cereal, peppercorn, tobacco, and many other things. We are, at the end, we are farmers. We are farmers, but with the aim of a businessman. In the characters of any businessman, there is even the possibility, in the mind, there is to profit about any kind of opportunities. And my father realized that to be here, together with the other producer, there was this opportunity to grow the Sangiovese Grosso and to become a great wine like a Brunello di Montalcino.
And when did he meet your mother?
And I want to point out the importance of the consortium of Brunello di Montalcino. This is the association of all producers of this wine.
How many now?
in the 1967, we were 17, and now we are 200s.
Wow.
So the
difference.
denomination has grown a lot. So from the original, probably 100 hectares of the 50s, spread all over the hills of Montalcino, now we have reached 2,100 hectares. That means approx 6,000 acres on the vines
That's
for
amazing.
Sangiovese Grosso. In 1954, we had shown our wines to the International Wine Show in Siena, and we have the paper that
Really?
showed that our participation. That was in 1955. So 1954. Sorry, and there we date back the first bottles of Brunello to this vintage. There were no rules except that the wine has to be produced with the Brunello grape, and a certain amount of time spent in the cask.
That's DOCG.
The DOCG has been created in 1979.
Oh, so it's kind of recent.
Quite recent, yes. In 1967, foundation of the consortium, and we became DOC, denomination of control origin. In 1979, we have created the DOCG, so granted the denomination and control origin. And we have been the first in Italy to have achieved the DOCG. Yes.
Oh, the first appellation.
Yes, the first appellation in it.
So with the consortium, then it's all, you get together, do you have meetings? Do you decide how we're going to grow? Do you share ideas? Do you share farming techniques? Do you try to sell more implements? What happens?
The aim of the consortium is to protect the denomination and even to write the rules or the laws that have after become laws, how to produce Brunello di Montalcino. To be Brunello di Montalcino, you have to produce the grape inside the Montalcino area, which is a big, but not so big. Imagine that we have the same size the Singapore towns, state towns, 240 square kilometers. And the consortium, so the grape has to be produced here, has to be 100% Sangiovese Grosso. And the second rule is that the production per hectares cannot be more than 5 tons. So that means 50 quintali, 50 quintals of grape. We have to produce only 60 after the vinification. We can achieve only 64% of the original amount of grape. And the wine has to spend minimum 2 years in the wood to refine in the wood per 2 years and 6 months in the bottles. What happens in the middles is on the choice of the producer. Some producers prefer to keep the wine 3 years in the wood and 1 or 2 years or 2 years more in the bottles. Really depends on what the producer wants to do. But, and then the last one is that the wine can be released after 5 years, starting from the agronomic year. So we start for pruning, for example, in 2020, and we will release the wine in the 1st January of 2025.
And that's the DOCG rule. That's from the consortium. Does that change? Does the consortium add things to the requirements of the wine?
You come
you were president.
You come from business,
yes.
You know, and you know that a wise businessman in the morning wake up and ask himself how to be contemporary. And this is the same for us. We have started in 1967, where the rules were to keep this wine 4 years in the wood cask. In 1995, we have changed the name to the grape, and that we have referred to the scientific name Sangiovese Grosso, and we have changed even some chemical reference that for us are important, like acidity, pH, or other things. And the other things is that we have reduced the refining in the wood from 4 years to 2 years. But the wine has to spend always 4 years in the cellar plus the agronomic year. So 5 years before to be released this wine in the market. In 1979, we have created another wine. So a lot of investors were coming to invest in the area. And my father has been considered to be the first foreigners because we are not from Tuscany, so we are not from Montalcino originally.
Foreigner, and I wondered what that meant, because you're not from Tuscany.
Because we are not from Tuscany.
Wow, that's a pretty specific foreigner.
We don't come from this Montalcino tradition. And so we are considered to be the first business investors in the area for winemaking.
Because 1979, I mean, in the world of wine, it's new world, it's new character. It's not something that would be very old. And so I'm wondering, you have a very old world character about the wines. It's got depth, it's got terroir, it's got its expression of where it's coming from. How's the world reacted to Brunello now? We're only talking, really a relative short amount of time.
I think that me personally, wine is curiosity. If I come to the United States, I want to taste your cab or something from your countries. If I go to Georgia, not Georgia, United States, Georgia, Asia, right, I want to taste some Separati. Or if I go in the south of Italy, I like Taurasi or anything. Or if I go to France, I want to taste Bourgogne or Alsace. So wine is curiosity. And Montalcino has his own target market of reference. Sangiovese is not for anyone. And Sangiovese, especially from this area, where we presume to be the best place in the world where to grow Sangiovese Grosso. And because take notes from these complex mosaics of soils, these 3 different climatic positions around these hills. And plus, even us, we give a perfect interpretation of this wine. We produce here wines for sophisticated palates. In my opinion, when you approach the Sangiovese Grosso, you need to have some acknowledgement about wine. You need to have tasted many other wines, because and after you reach the Sangiovese and the Brunello di Montalcino. In Italy, we used to produce wine for food.
Well,
we produce oil.
Around our place,
oil,
it's been like food. We've been drinking it.
Sangiovese Grosso is wine for fatty food or very spicy food. For example, we have done some testing with Chinese and Indian food, and we have found that the Brunello is perfect for this spicy food.
Well, it's
because
got spice.
This acidity cleans up. Clean the mouth from this spicy side. But fatty food is the perfect pairing for the Brunello di Montalcino. So acidity have to be counterbalanced by fat. Fat means a touch of olive oil or some stewed meat.
Or boar salami.
Even some salami or boar salami or even some ham with a lot of fat, aged cheese, Parmesan. So it's wine for strong taste, but at the same time fat.
You said something very interesting that I want to peel back a little bit, and that is, if you go to Bourgogne, you want to taste the Burgundy. If you go to Napa, you want to taste the Cabernet. If you go to South America, you want to taste the Malbec or Carmenere. And here we have moving varietals around the world and planting different things. And we just had the conversation with Francesca earlier that the Sangiovese from Napa Valley, it's not quite expressive yet. We don't know what it's going to be like in the future. But I have a very romantic view of this in that when we plant Syrah, I'm going to use Cortona as an example. For me, when I see an English word like a word like Syrah on a label or Merlot, when it's coming from a region from other than America, I feel like I'm just not really experiencing what's going on in that neighborhood. And here we have Sangiovese Grosso. The DOCG requires it. You have to make it this way. You have certain rules, and that protects the origin. But how do you feel about, well, let's take Super Tuscans, the declassified grapes. We put them in a bottle. Sassicaia gets $350 a bottle, and Are we tasting Tuscany that way?
I like them. I like them, honestly, because it's something different from my Brunello di Montalcino. But the Brunello has his own characters, his own characteristic, can be made all in Montalcino. And, I think that in the wine, there are two different words. The marketing, the wine of marketing, think about Yellowtail. So it's a massive production of white wine that match perfectly about what the market asks for. And there is even there is the Brunello, so an expression of a terroir, specific terroir and a specific grape variety. So there are two different words. I think that Bulgari has been created by marketing and after it become a denomination, a very important denomination. So they have produced a wine for a market, for a specific market. They are much more free than us because we can produce only with one grape. So we depend a lot on the vintage. We depend a lot in the mix of different terroir, not the grape. Yes. And that's why our classic Brunello di Montalcino, our Tenute Silvio Nardi, is a blend of 25 different vinification from different terroir.
Isn't that the point, though? I mean, in a pure world of wine, if we didn't have marketing, we didn't have profit necessarily driving this, and we just wanted to express ourselves, wouldn't it be the DOCG Brunello?
As I told you, we are business people. We wake up always to be contemporary.
We
need always to face the market. We blend the wine. We blend the different vinification of Sangiovese. But when I make the blend in Bordeaux and together with my two cellar masters, David and Mario, and our Italian consultant, we always think about a market of reference.
But you have to.
But at the same time, always in the tradition, in the respect of a Sangiovese Grosso that we produce. In my bottles, you will never find even a single berry of other producer. Everything is made with our own grape in the respect of our tradition, but it's a walking tradition to the future in the respect of the requirement of the market.
You said something interesting about Yellowtail. You brought that up. I'm surprised. They have Yellowtail here in Italy? I mean, do they sell Australian?
No, not so much.
But it's
a curiosity.
Right?
It's something very, very difficult to find.
I had a podcast with the leading authority on counterfeit wines, on fake wines, and somebody started counterfeiting Yellowtail. Can you imagine?
How about that?
I mean, I don't know why you would do that, but I guess there's money in it. Yeah. Is there an issue with counterfeit Brunello? Have you heard?
It's a lot.
Is it?
I have found some Mana Chiara fake, different label. They have just kept the name. And even the Brunello that we have found, we have absolutely told to the police that there was a counterfeit Brunello di Montalcino. It's quite common, was more common in the past. Now, because we have the color neck with the numbers, you can put the numbers into the website of a consortium, and you can see if your bottles are certified. They are originally from Montalcino, and so fake bottles are a little bit more difficult to find.
But the consortium has set up a protection for you amongst the group.
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's a self-control that we have imposed to ourselves. That's why for us the consortium is so important. They make the strict control on the vineyards we plant. They check if everything is a Sangiovese Grosso, and they take control from the harvest to the moment of we release the bottles in the market.
Well, Rudy's back.
All the process has to be done inside Montalcino. Till the moment we stick the label, we put in the car box, and we ship. Anything has to be done inside this community.
Because the gentleman's back, Rudy, the famous Colonel, the Vietnamese or Taiwanese, who was in jail in America for doing this with Romani Conti and all the brands. He was released from jail a few months ago, and now he's back doing it again, but out of his own country. Yeah. So you were talking off camera that you started at 19, and you have 7 brothers and sisters that are not part of the wine business. Were you drawn to the wine business because of your father, or were you assigned this by your father to come do this? Did you have the passion for wine before you at 19 years old? You remember?
I have to be honest.
Yes.
Or do you want something?
I mean, that's up
like
to you.
Anyone, when like anyone at 20 years old, I have had a love delusion. And so my father thought to send me to the countryside to work, so just to be away from this boyfriend.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very honest.
I was so passionate in my characters that I take for serious this business with a lot of passion. And to be a winemaker, you need to love it because. Every vintage is different. You need to love the risk, to take the risk that some vintages can be really a mess, difficult, and something wonderful can happen in other vintages.
Is that where the passion came from?
I have been honest. And
I appreciate that.
I have come in this winery since I was 0 years. So we spent a lot of times in this farming. So, in some way we belong to this place. Mm-hmm. You learn even only seeing things. Yeah, when you are grown up in the countryside, you know that there are some laws, there are some rules that after belongs to you. So it has been quite easy for me at 19 years old to do this business.
But did you have it right away, or did it take a little long?
No,
it took me 10 years.
No, slowly.
Yeah, it's very slow.
But when I was 19, my father was 79. And so he was so old. He needed to have some young person to take care of this business.
How many at that time? Because this is a subject. I want your opinion of this comment, because women in wine, at least in America, is a big subject, and there's this huge movement. And I had a very interesting podcast with a young woman in Spring Mountain, and she goes, "I wish we wouldn't even talk about it. I wish that wasn't a conversation. Why am I not just a winemaker?"
I think that workplaces, work in generally, has been set in a man's size, not a woman's size. Europe is a little bit different toward the women. For example, when you have a small baby, the government grant 1 year free. They pay for the maternity leaving.
Right.
So it's a little bit different from the United States. But work is absolutely done on men's size. That means work time, even the size of the working machine. Imagine the tractors, imagine many other things, is more men's size. But me, I was the daughter of the owners. So my life has been much easier than, generally speaking, of women at work. But
in the industry...
it was a little bit difficult. Yeah. There is the boys' club. When we go to sell the wine, the owners of the restaurants, most of the time, they are men. They talk about soccer. They talk about how they have created the business. But I cannot talk about women or they spend the night.
That's a problem. Is that a problem for them that they can't do it?
When I go to promote the wine together with other producers, most of them are men.
Yeah.
When it's 10 o'clock in the night or 11 o'clock in the night, normally I have a headache and I say to them, bye-bye, and I go to sleep. So,
but they must respect you very much because you were president of the consortium and you've done other things.
There is one thing which is quite good. That is when I have a great connection with the secretary of the president. This is quite good. We always find a way to do
an inside look at things.
Yes,
right?
I am going back to your question. I haven't been the president of the consortium, but now I am the president of the Farming Association for the province of Siena.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought I read
it's
president
bigger.
somewhere.
It's bigger, the consortium, the Brunello, but it's different. So I take care of from cereal to grape to any kind of a farming, forest. So it's something different. So
But that must
it's
mean respect.
union. It's the union of the farmers of Siena.
That must mean respect for your work and for what you've done and what you brought to the table. Not just because you're...
You know, sometimes things happen.
Yeah, well,
I don't know
you
why.
think it's an accident. I don't think it's an accident.
I think that I have tried to be always a loyal person, direct, very sincere, and I have shown to have an integrity.
And that goes. That is what the
and
difference
going
is.
back to the woman at work, so the women question is that a woman need to be to have integrity in the business
To get respect.
Yeah, to get respect. Yes, not to be a doll, to show to be a doll. Obviously, most of the time we can solve a question with a smile.
Yeah.
This is obvious.
Do you consider yourself a steward of this land that, you know, it's for the next generation and the generation after that, where you're doing the best you can to influence the best wines you can make from this terroir, and that you're anticipating that the vintages in the next 30 years are going to be...
In the family, we are a large one. We are talking about the next generation, and but the farmer is. It's true that I represented this winery. It doesn't belong solely to me, but I think on the reverse too, that we work for the promotion for this land, this estate to be at the best. So the estates, in generally, they century after century, they will remain. People goes by. So
They go by.
So we work for the greatness, for the importance of this piece of land. So the estate is much more important than me, all of the people that will come after. So if I have done a good job, everything will go in the next generation, will pass to the next generation, or generations in plural.
I think that's where the integrity comes from. When you show that humility, that's who you are and that's what you're going to do. And when you pass it on, when it goes to the next generation, it's better than it was when you got it. And that's what people want to see.
You know, Paul, when you are a farmer, you are extremely aware that about the seasons.
Yeah.
Even life has different seasons. There is a moment to be extremely productive, to be innovative, but there is even the season where you need to put what you have done in the warehouse, and there is the season where you need to do a step back.
Well, and I look at that as...
in order to have a new spring.
I look at that as part of the terroir.
Yeah.
That what's in this glass that we're tasting right now is your philosophy, your humility, your integrity comes through in this glass. It may not be extra acid or extra fruit, but it's in the structure of the wine that you bring to the table.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. How important do you think in your market, because you mentioned that you were from the sophisticated palate, that you have to sell to the sophisticated palate, and that's, you know, most people are not sophisticated palate. But I understand that completely with the fine Brunello, that you need to be able to sense those nuances and feel the terroir and feel Emilia in this glass. But how do you tell that story?
Please close the door.
That's okay. How do you tell that story? How do you, I guess this is the marketing question of the year, to get people to understand this idea of a history?
The history, do you mean the history in the glass, the taste of a Sangiovese?
Right.
But first of all, the palate of the young people is absolutely more sophisticated than the ones that we have had in the past. Even it's more easy now to have these products from all over the world. So now we probably United States, you can taste Chinese, Indian, or something like that. But I think that we needed to promote this wine. Me, I have promoted this wine all over the world, traveling and having people to taste the wine.
It's almost a
This
hand
is
sell.
this is the only to let the people to taste. And when something is good, when something has something particular, people understand where the quality is. In the history, in the personal history of the approach of the wine, normally people start from a sweet, after they go to the white wines, more strong and complex white wines, after they go to the red and more sophisticated reds.
I have this romantic position of wine, which is eventually, even the generations of the kids today that are drinking, White Claw and non-alcoholic beverages that don't taste very good.
It's a big market. It's a growing market.
Well, they'll come around. They'll taste your Brunello and they'll say, there's something unique about this, and they'll become. Look, we've been around. How many thousands of years have we been doing this? 6,000 years, maybe 10.
In Italy we say poco ma buono, that translated is of good quality, but not a lot. But important is that it has to be good. So
yes,
even
right.
with the wine, is to drink wisely, but of good quality.
Yes.
This is probably the most important things. In Italy, we are used to that, even in the dress. Less dresses, but of good quality. Less wine, but of good quality. Less tomato sauce, but of good quality. This is absolutely part of the Italian way of thinking.
I did a tasting a few nights ago at a friend's house. They're all Armenian wines. I'm of Armenian descent. It's an industry that's growing. I'm helping them understand the worldwide marketing. And the problem is different than here in Brunello. They don't get along with each other, so they don't have a consortium because they don't want to share ideas. But I tasted these, maybe it was 7 or 8 Armenian wines. Some, they're starting to come around. They're starting to show complexity. They're starting to show terroir. They're starting to make things happen. But then I brought out a big, giant California Cabernet, Paso Robles, and everybody went nuts. And it taught me a lot about the palate, the average palate. I thought these Armenian wines were interesting because of their structure, but that opulent, fruit-forward, no acid was important. But then you get with a Brunello, and you get nice acid, and you're having this food pairing. Do you think what grows together, goes together as far as grain, fruit, herbs?
I
or
think
we can be eclectic.
it's a big question. It's a big question.
That's a big question.
And it's not easy because me sometimes, even if I am a Brunello producer, like the big Cabernet, or I like a wonderful Merlot from Bordeaux. That's absolutely to talks like me. You need to have money. You need to have the possibility to buy wines from all over the world to have tasted them, and the comparison is absolutely difficult.
Do you just come home from work sometimes and say, I just don't feel like a Brunello tonight, I want to try something else?
Paul, in my house, in my private home, I don't have a cellar with my wines.
Yeah.
My private cellar is made from wines coming or bought all over the world when I travel.
Should I edit that part out?
Because
so people don't hear?
I am a part of the wine people.
Yes.
Not only in the wine producing side, but even in the wine taster, wine lovers of wine. So it's that. And I think that to compare wines is absolutely difficult.
Yes.
It's like to compare a musician with a brickman or something different,
right.
or a musician with a painter. There are two different kinds of arts. So in the Cabernet towards the Sangiovese, it's difficult.
It is art.
Yes.
And it does require.
We can invite people, we can tell people, taste Sangiovese or taste Cabernet and make your own ideas. And this is something personal, it's like looking at a painting. I can like Renaissance, you prefer modern art. But the important is to see modern art and Renaissance painting, and after you make your own choice. This is like the wine. This is the wine. I do not pretend that my Sangiovese to be the preferred wine of someone that prefer Cabernet from Paso Robles. But
So
I
it's
hope,
true. You're
I
totally
hope
true.
that this person have the possibility to taste my Sangiovese and to make the comparison.
How often are you traveling to go tell this story?
Oh, I have traveled a lot. Before I was traveling 150 days
Wow.
per year. Now I have reduced my times and I have someone else to travel for me. It's a different life season now.
Well, I can say that Ida was very good. I met her a few weeks ago at a trade tasting, and she was very polite, and we had a great conversation, and she told your story well.
Yes.
We're already at 50 minutes almost. Can you imagine that?
As you want. We can go on or you can stop. As you
Well,
want.
we're gonna give you a break.
Depends on you.
It's fascinating to have a conversation with you, and I know we could talk another hour if we wanted to about what's going on out there. But I hope we can do it again one day, and maybe when you come to LA, or we're back here to have this conversation.
Why not?
Yes.
Why not? Probably we have other history.
No, that's right. We got lots of history
to tell to you. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you for the time today.
It's been a great experience for me too. Thank
Cheers.
you. Grazie.
Salute. Grazie.
Salve. Grazie.
Hey, we are back. Wine Talks with Paul K. I recorded this to sort of supplement the episode with Silvio Nardi. We just returned from Europe 3 weeks, which is incredible. I came home kicking and screaming. In fact, trying to write that in French was a little more challenging than I expected. However, our trip took us to Italy, and we were in the Cortona area, which is sort of the setting for Under the Tuscan Sun, the famed book and movie. Had a grand time in this medieval village. Made some connections with the wine shop owner there, who has a direct-to-consumer club, so we had that going on. We also met a jeweler, unfortunately, that puts on wine shows where it's called Wine, Dine, and Shine, and those are coming to America soon. I'll be helping him. And what it is you're going to have a regular winemaker's dinner, and he will adorn you with jewels that you have the option to purchase if you'd like. But it's just sort of a conversation starter as you're sitting amongst friends or people you don't know to talk about wine, dining, and shining. Regardless, we spent some time there. We tasted some pretty cool local wines in Cortona. Oddly and interestingly, the famed grape of the area is Syrah. It is not an indigenous varietal to Italy, like Sangiovese or Montalcino, stuff like that. So I just thought it was fascinating that this area of Tuscany found itself supporting grapes like Syrah rather than the indigenous grapes. And they were very good. In fact, we even bought a few to bring home. The next couple of days, though, found us in Montalcino, and a must-stop for wine enthusiasts when visiting Italy if you can. It's in Tuscany. It's Brunello di Montalcino is the main wine grown there. Of course, there are blends and Rosso di Montalcinos, which are red blends from the area. But some of the most pedigreed wines in Italy are coming from this area. And part of it is the history. Part of it is understanding the history of these people and how they got there. As you know, we talk about the story of wine. Wine is a story. And in fact, hopefully you'll see a series of shows on the subject of the idea that wine is a story. If you haven't seen Drops of God on Apple TV, I suggest you watch that because it's fascinating. My wife and I binged on it, watched the whole thing like in 2 days. And the final analysis is wine is about the story. And so when you have a chance to tell and to see these stories live, it's rather intriguing and inspiring. So we visited 3 wineries in Montalcino. The first one was the Silvio Nardi winery. And what an amazing opportunity that we had as a group to be entertained by, toured by, and dined with Emilia Nardi. Emilia Nardi's been running this winery as the daughter of Silvio Nardi for 40 years. And when we talk about the various subjects that this story impacts. One of them certainly is women in wine. But she got involved long before this was a subject. So her headwinds to the wine industry, particularly in a very patriarchal society like the Italian society, it's almost storied. It's almost insurmountable at her time that she entered into the fray to become as well known and influential as she is in the area, having become sort of head of the agricultural society that surrounds Montalcino, head of the winery, the respect she's earned. In fact, we visited another Montalcino winery and met with Giancarlo, and he, like, when I told him that we had just visited with Emilia Nardi, he was like, give her my regards, because the respect was so high. So Emilia runs this winery. And what's interesting about the winery there, if this same winery was in Napa, I'm not saying one's better than the other, I'm just saying it as a fact. This would be one of those giant chateaux with the pillars and the fancy doorways and these huge tasting rooms and the stocked inventory. And that's not what it is. It's actually very humble, very simple, old, obviously. These winery buildings are old in Europe, but no attempts for flashiness. In fact, it's so far away to get to, it was actually very difficult. We ended up using the GPS on our phone, and they count dirt roads, at least the way the iPhone works. And so we're on these dirt roads forever, and we got so far into one of them, like 3 or 4 miles, at 20 to 30 miles an hour, and it just ran out. Or it got so narrow that our car wouldn't even fit down there as part of the road probably hadn't been traveled on for years. We had to backtrack and start over again. So that's completely fascinating and totally different than what we're used to in the States and the wine country. But once we got to the winery, we realized this was a very humble, passionate place to be for wine. And she took the time not only to tour us and have the podcast that you just heard, she dined with us. I mean, it was like an hour and a half lunch, which, unheard of in California, maybe 2 hours, and it was delicious. Actually, of all the meals we had in Italy those 2 weeks, it was one of the best meals we had. And it was just prepared by the chef in the winery for that day. It was absolutely fascinating. But going back to Emilia, she, as you heard, her plight and her career has taken her in a lot of directions and has forced her to overcome the barriers that otherwise would have been laid out in front of her and maybe unsurmountable by many people. But she was cordial, she was polite, she was elegant, and we hope to see her again when she comes to LA. But I just want to make sure you guys understood this about her. In fact, where the podcast was recorded, you would see this wonderfully rustic room, but with the details that you would expect from something built in the early 1900s, maybe late 1800s. Fireplace, huge, with detailed carved scrolls and a story to tell. And that's what this is about. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the stories from her. Fascinating woman. If you ever do get to Italy, visit Montalcino, stay at Castello di Vallona. It's an incredible place. Actually, not very expensive for what it was. It was a refurbished castle into modern-day hotelier ambiance. So cheers, everybody. Have a listen. Thank you for listening to Wine Talks with Paul Kalamkarian. Don't forget to subscribe because there's more great interviews on their way. Folks, have a great time out there in the wine world. Cheers.